What's up guys, welcome back to another video. I'm Ivan Calderon, and today we're talking about whether or not you need music theory to produce music and make beats. So this is a topic that I've been wanting to dive into for a really long time, especially because it resonates so much with me and I assume with anybody else who makes music in the digital age. I think it's safe to say that right now we're in the best time to make music. Not only has the cost of music creation hardware become more consumer friendly, but the software side of things have also made astronomical leaps. There are pieces of software right now like Scalar and Auto Theory among many others that will literally walk you through chord progressions, scales, and keys, turn them into MIDI data, and then allow you to drag and drop them into your DAW and help you finish a song that way. For every piece of software like this, however, there always seems to be a person who will shake their fist and scowl at you because you're not a real musician until you learn theory. This then begs the question, if there are pieces of software out there right now that will do most of the hard work for us in terms of music theory, do we as producers and beat makers even need to learn it to produce music and make beats? Real quick, before we get started, I want to put up some definitions up on the board. Traditionally, a producer was someone who saw a record all the way through. They might make beats for it, but they might also contribute to the arrangement, the overall energy. They might coach an artist on how to say a certain phrase when recording. They might play an instrument, and they might even give their 2 cents on mixing. A beat maker, on the other hand, was just someone who made beats. Now, I know things have changed over time, especially in the urban music industry. The beat maker has become the producer has become the executive producer, but regardless of whatever terminology you decide to use, either old school or new school, at the end of the day, the point of this video will apply to both, but it was important for me to make the distinction between these two jobs early on in the video. Okay, so before I tell you about why my opinion even matters, let me tell you a little bit more about myself. I have been playing instruments since I was 12. In 7th grade, I picked up my first instrument, the trumpet, which was actually the instrument where I learned music theory on. I was lucky enough to be coached by an amazing instructor, Mr. Alice Davis, who was not only our band class professor, but also the high school's marching band director, which I was also a part of. After I got really comfortable with theory, I picked up the guitar in 9th grade, which I played at my church every Sunday, and those two instruments, the guitar and the trumpet, I played for the remainder of my high school experience. I first got introduced to beat making, production, and recording not long after I picked up the trumpet, but it wasn't until I was in college around 2012 that I really saw it through. At that point, I was pretty set that that's what I wanted to do, so I picked up my first DAW, audio interface, speakers, and MIDI keyboard. From then on, I started to practice the keys more and more, and not long after that, I had 3 instruments under my belt: the trumpet, guitar, and keyboard. Many years after picking up my first instrument, I now produce and make beats professionally, meaning that I have an active list of clients who I serve and help produce their music from right here in my studio. So looping back to the original question of whether or not you need music theory to produce music and make beats, as someone who knows theory, plays several instruments, and uses these music theory tools on the daily, my answer to you would be no, but I would be lying if I said it didn't help tremendously. As mentioned earlier, there is a plethora of tools out there that will help you with music theory, and if you're someone who doesn't want to be bothered by learning it, then you can definitely use them to get the job done, and that's fine. I'm certainly not judging anybody for doing so, because why would you not want to use a tool that makes your job easier? On the other hand, however, as someone who produces professionally, I have to say, the industry is a crowded space, and we all know this. Your success as a music producer and a beat maker will ultimately come down to who you know and what skills you have that will add value and separate yourself from the competition, and that's really the key here. Anybody can pick up Scalar and start making program beats at home, but if you really want to stand out, in my opinion, it is 100% worth learning theory and learning how to play an instrument. A lot of times when I'm here with artists in the studio working, we either create from scratch or they come in with lyrics and chords and we kind of build from there. Now in these scenarios, things can go one of 2 ways. Either number one, you know theory and you know how to play an instrument and you can start to mess around with some melodies and some chords that might match the mood, get the creative juices flowing, and then just let things go smoothly. Or number 2, you don't have these skills yet and are forced to fiddle with software until you find something that matches, do a bunch of trial and error, and just pray to God the artist doesn't lose inspiration and dump you completely. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. I'll pass. I don't care to learn music theory because at the end of the day, I still have my software and that's good enough for me. And on top of that, I don't work with artists. I make beats at home and I sell them on the internet. My answer to you would be think of the possibilities and think long term. If you make okay beats now, you'll make great ones once you learn theory. And if you make great ones now, I promise you, you'll make even better ones. Additionally, just because you don't work with artists now doesn't mean you won't ever in the future. Imagine one day you get invited to a session for an artist that you respect. And let's say they're having trouble figuring out a chord or a melody. Imagine if you're the person who can help them get over that obstacle, and better yet, imagine if you're the person who can play an instrument like a keyboard who can lay that part down. Immediately invaluable. So yes, these music theory tools are fantastic, and the ones that I've recommended here on the channel, I personally use myself every day, but what I would say is use them as supplements and spend some time learning theory and learning how to play an instrument if you really want to have fun with production. Because at least for me, one of the biggest frustration pieces was feeling creative and not knowing how to express myself, not knowing how to get that out. And sometimes in those cases, even software doesn't get you all the way there. And yes, even though learning theory initially sucks, I promise that once you have it down, your music creation experience will be exponentially more enjoyable. Now, if you want to learn more about music theory, you can take classes online right now at Skillshare.com, and for the first 500 people, I'm just kidding. That ain't sponsored this video. I'm not that cool yet. So to wrap this up, you don't need music theory to produce music and make beats. I'm sure everyone here knows of a producer who is relatively successful and doesn't know it, but from personal experience, I can tell you that if you do learn it, music production becomes much more fun, and ultimately, you'll be adding more value to yourself and separating yourself from the competition. My personal recommendation for any producer or beat maker is to not only learn theory, but learn it on the keys. If you know how to play the keys, you are golden in production because you can literally play every instrument now, it seems, on a MIDI keyboard. Lastly, although knowing music theory and learning how to play an instrument are really important, please do not let anybody ever make you feel inadequate for not having these skills yet. I would go as far as to say that you can teach theory in any instrument to anybody who produces and makes beats, but you can't necessarily teach a musical virtuoso how to produce a record. Now, all jokes aside, if you do want a solid starting point for your music theory journey, I have a great book recommendation called Music Theory 101 that I'll be linking down below in the description. Additionally, if you want more free resources, I've created a production kit that comes with 5 original sample loops along with all the major and minor scales and their triad chords in MIDI format to help you with your production in theory. You can get all that by clicking the link down below as well. Question for all of you, do you know theory? Do you know how to play an instrument? And if so, has that helped your production? And ultimately, do you even think we need these skills to produce music and make beats? Let me know down below. But that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you're not already, but I'll see you guys on the next one.